Education is a big thing in the church community, but what is the right move for you and your team? Joining us today to talk about a conference that will level up your knowledge is Stephanie Lippy from CFX. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi.
Stephanie, tell us about the new and improved CFX conference.
Yeah, we're really excited this year. We have an opportunity with a lot of new hands-on training that you can get. We've got a lot of audio classes. So if you're trying to level up your audio, this is the place to go. We've got Alan and Heath doing sessions. We've got Meyer Sound doing sessions. There's just a bunch of them. There's also a lot of opportunities to learn more about video and editing, directing, camera operation, lighting. We're covering a bunch of stuff that we haven't been able to cover before. And this year we have both keynote sessions and general sessions. And in our keynote session, he's going to be talking about how to use your faith to support your ministry role. And then in the general session, we have Justin Firesheets and Jeremy Van Valkenburg talking about, okay, so now how do you take what Ryan Miller in the keynote session talked about and incorporate that specifically into your worship production? Lots of exciting stuff.
It's not just for techs, right? I noticed if you're a pastor out there listening and you're like, it's just a tech conference, kind of explain what you guys have done, because it looks like multiple conferences all in one.
Absolutely. That's a great question. We have 4 conferences for different people in the church. One for anyone planning a building project. So, and that includes tech upgrades, but it also includes construction projects. We've got a conference for safety and security, and we have a conference for facility stewardship and daily operations.
It sounds like a lot going on. I'm going to be there. Hundreds of churches across the country are going to be there, so you don't want to miss CFX 2024. You'll make new friends, you'll learn new techniques, and you'll grow your knowledge. So register today by going to churchfacilitiesexpo.com. It's happening October 21st through the 23rd in beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee. You don't want to miss this. churchfacilitiesexpo.com. Register today.
This is the Tech Arts Podcast, where we talk about tech, leadership, and all things that concern church audio, video, and lighting.
Welcome to the Tech Arts Podcast and the Earthworks Audio Studios. My name is DL. So glad to have you joining us today. I'm so excited about today's podcast. It's part 4 with Buford Jones. Now, you may ask yourself, this is part 4. Why is David so excited? Well, here's a man who has really lived life. He's worked with some of the most popular artists in the world and performed at very high levels. Yet, there is a part of his life that not many people have heard about. It's his walk with Jesus Christ. Buford opens up about that today. Plus, we talk about the difference between line check, sound check, and rehearsals. It's an exciting podcast, and I don't want to keep you one more moment. So let's jump right into part 4 of our conversation with Buford Jones. Here it is. We met years ago at a megachurch here in Dallas, Texas. And I remember you coming through and being like, whoa, I've never seen anything like this before at a church. We ran things a little bit more professional, and I think we kind of had a bar of excellence that was pretty high. But as I got to know you and we became friends, I realized that your walk with the Lord was changing and you were coming closer and closer to the Lord. So tell me a little bit about your salvation experience. Talk to our audience a little bit about that.
I was raised in Apostolic Church in Port Arthur, Texas, and I think from 0 up until 16, I was in that church. So I went to church quite often, and I'd listen and follow, even had a vision at a younger age, but I always believed there was Jesus. I hadn't quite met him yet, and it's like, but I just always believed there was, from my upbringing and the awareness of it, and listening to very powerful sermons. And so then I drifted away, what I call drifted away once I left home and then started traveling. It was very difficult for me. Well, I hardly even considered it, to be quite honest, but to go to church while you're on the road, it's very difficult. But then again, as time went on, it was a marriage for me. It's what's interesting to me to see people that finally give themselves to the Lord. It's when they're in the deepest rut of their life. Why do you have to wait that long? You have to be in severe trouble, severe pain, and you call upon the Lord. Well, okay. I understand that as well, and certainly you should, but I found myself in my divorce, and that was inevitable after 27 years, and I was trying my best to make it work, and I knew I just couldn't handle it. So, I had a group of friends and some people around me, actually very few Christians around me. And this one, Lloyd Baggs, makes Baggs guitars, pickups. And I had an experience in going to see him, or the night I was going to see him. And it was just a wonderful experience, the way I gave myself and the way that it all happened, enlightenment of everything. And it was almost funny to us that when I got to his apartment, this had hit me, and I just felt wonderful. And when he opened the door and welcomed me, I went inside, but you had to go down the hallway to get inside. And the first thing that I said to them was totally different the way I usually do. I said, "Y'all are Christians, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, we are." And then I just recited Jesus Christ is Lord and went through all of it. And it was just a wonderful time in my life. And that's all we talked about the whole night. We never talked about audio, which is what I went there for. He's going to put some little speakers, Meyer speakers, those MM4s, in the studio that he showcases his Baggs pickups. And, I changed my life. It helped me tremendously, obviously, through the divorce and get my setup and how to deal with this and just look for guidance. Don't let the past and bad things keep pounding me. Think about what I must do now to move forward. So I started going to church then, and I was still on the road. And so I went through, in fact, Lord had told me that night, he said, I says, well, what denomination should I pick, or what kind of church should I go to? And he said, the Lord will guide you there. He says, just go where you feel, and he will guide you to the right spot. So I went to several churches, and I felt good, and I felt, everything. And then I think it was about the fourth one that I went to in this time period, over a month. And I went into one, and then I met the pastor as I got in the parking lot. Church of the Nazarene. And I went in the parking lot, and just so happened I parked right next to the minister, the preacher, and we walked in together, and we were just talking, chatting, and I could tell I liked this guy already, just the way we were talking out in the parking lot. And then this platinum-haired woman was standing behind the door, just an angel. She's just simply an angel, nothing else in my book. And she was there to greet people, and when I walked in, and she was about 90, I think, and I reached out to shake her hand, and she said, "No, I'm a hugger." And I said, "Okay." So I just hugged her, and I said, "Eureka, God has brought me here." And that hung on me I went there a total of 6 years before I moved out here, maybe 7 years, and I got involved with their audio, and, she was just great. She guided me with good scriptures, and I talked to her, and she just couldn't understand why this divorce was going on. And I said, I can't understand it either, but I made an oath to that woman, and I made an oath to God. And, if things aren't perfect, nothing in the world is perfect, nothing. So, people that can cope with the fact that it's not perfect, you can work things out. If you don't let it, it's not perfect, and that make you mad and angry, and then you take it out on somebody. So she was wonderful, and I found my home, and I stayed there for many years. And, that brings up a topic too, which I'm sure you'd be talking about, is mixing in houses of worship. And so that became a thing for me. Well, that church, after really 6 or 7 years, changed. The pastor retired, and that woman died. I spoke at her funeral, and it was a very difficult thing for me to do. And then some other changes in the church. And then there was a church right next door to my house, which is a Presbyterian church. And I've been meeting people in the parking lot because I live next to it. And then I said, well, I'm going to go in here for a while. And of course, they needed sound help. So I did that. I enjoyed the sermons that this particular pastor did. And, it started my week. I think the week on my calendar starts on Monday, but really the first day of my week is Sunday. And I think the church kind of helps set up my week, that I know I've started it in a good way. Now, we follow that through, but then, I'm right behind the console again. And it's very tough on, especially somebody like myself, but that I have experience. I know how to operate these things, but then you get into a whole medusa of wiring that goes everywhere, and knots and ties in it, and I'm looking at this, and what I've come up with more than not, it's that so many volunteers have tried their best to rewire or redo the sound system, and it just gets worse in time. Unless they put it back the way it was, well then, too bad it didn't have digital recall. But even then, you still got to tweak it. So it's been pretty difficult, and I found it pulling away from the message I went to that church for in the beginning. It's hard for me somebody's handing me tapes to play. Somebody wants this off of their phone to play, and they're wanting this and that, and I have to do this and that. I've gone to church there at the Nazarene, and go there on a Sunday morning, and there's nobody in the parking lot. And I said, what in the world? It's Sunday, isn't it? And I look at it, yeah, it's Sunday. Where is everybody? Come to find out, they decided to meet in the campgrounds. And I never heard them say that because I'm so busy up until the service start or something going on, and I just never heard the announcement. I should have read it and what have you, but it's like I said, it becomes a little bit overwhelming when I'm on that front. Then when I got here, I had a calling very clear to me and unmistakable. And as God told me that you take these blessings that I have given you all your life, and you make sure, trying to get the picture back, there it is. You make sure that my word is heard clearly in every house of worship you can. And I knew what that meant. I loved that. I love that.
Buford, say that one more time. The Lord spoke to you and said what?
The Lord spoke to me and said, use the career that I've blessed you with, and use it to make sure that every church you can go into, that my word is clearly heard. And that to me means it's not necessarily me sitting there and mixing. I can't do that in every church, but do just that. I started a thing once I moved here it was more word of mouth. I did not set up a website. I did not advertise. And word of mouth, it was about 6 different churches that I've done in this area within a 100-mile distance. And that's what I do. I don't charge them. I feel that's a gift I was given, so I'll give that gift to them. So I'll go in and spend 3-4 hours, whatever time that we have, with the crew, And if there is a crew, some of them really don't have a crew. Some of them are it's just, and that makes it very difficult to not be able to find a true standard here. But in most cases, it's been that the equipment, if it was just carefully gone over and thought out a little bit better, it worked just fine. You don't have to invest another $10,000, $20,000. And I think it's where, well, in their case, in your case, a little different. But when they're Gateway, but the budget on these smaller churches, whenever they put that money in and then the volunteers run it and it's not run to its optimum status, well, then the congregation is going, okay, we, cleared the money for this equipment, and still the church down the street sounds better. What's going on? Well, you got to have a pilot to fly that big airplane, and do they have time? Most of these volunteers are working during the day. They got a family to keep up. It's really hard to find. But I think for another problem that I would see, a lot of the guys that would devote their time, being that they're not being paid, I heard it more times than I wanted to hear it, that, well, my cousin or my sister or mother-in-law or whoever, they're coming into town next Sunday, so I won't be at church. Or I can't come there Wednesday night to help you because my friends are doing this or doing that. And okay, all right. So the difference in paying somebody to do what they do, I mean, at a house of worship that pays an accountant, pays
they pay the pastor,
the janitorial work, if the HVAC goes out, do we get volunteers to go work on it? I mean, or do we, call a company and spend the money? I think for some reason it disheartens me to see sound actually on the bottom of their budget list. And I said, you have a wonderful chandelier. That could buy a lot of speakers right there. I mean, but that's okay. It looks beautiful. And you got these murals on the wall. You got this beautiful carpet, but paved parking lot. And you've got this and that and this and that. But why is your sound so minuscule? And the Word of God, if it is not clearly presented, I can't make them understand it. But if I make it clear, they have a better chance of understanding it. In other words, try to teach them some mic technique, which is difficult to do, but I manage that, explain the difference, what it sounds like whenever you're cupping the microphone and how it muffles your sound or distorts. And now you start shouting into it. We're overloading the diaphragm in some cases, depending on how loud they scream, but how loud they go in their message. So I'm trying to work. I think it takes working with a pastor a little bit. I think it takes working with the choir a little bit, and it takes work. I think if somebody can pick up, as would be a volunteer, could pick up the way to look at this overall audio picture, they may do that in their routine and become much better at what they do.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Buford, is investment. We're not saying to every church you need to hire a staff member and they need to be full-time and, paid tons of money. Now, if you can do that, I think that's awesome. But I think what we're saying is if you have volunteers that are running your sound, invest in them. Invest in them with things like MXU or Buford being able to come out and teach and train. Put some resources towards those volunteers, towards your audio system. You may have an HVAC system, but you put money into that so that you only have to call the repair guy once every few years when it breaks. Invest in them, invest in your people, and you'll have a better product and a better result. Don't necessarily just throw it back there and think anybody can run it and think anybody can do it. Invest in those people. Put some money towards it. Put some money and resources towards it, and you'll see to use your word, you'll see it, come out of the system more clearly.
Yes, you will.
A clearer response that will allow you to communicate better as a pastor.
Well, I think the fact of receiving a paycheck, especially for me, anybody that pays me money, I feel I have a stronger obligation to absolutely get this job done, unless it's an emergency, some urgent thing that somebody needs help. I mean, other than that, the fact of rewarding somebody, let's use that word, you reward them either with cash or whatever your means are, that gives them an obligation to be there every Sunday, to get their paycheck. It's like any other job, you're going to be there all the time. When you do that, therefore you're absorbing more, you will learn more. And I love working with those groups. As I've come and worked with you with some of your groups, it's very satisfying to me to be able to do that and see the interest and see these people work before and after I've left. I mean, I think they do an incredible job. And I think these things, can help us on an overall picture. It's like golf. Somebody's showing you a golf swing. Fine, you can show me a grip, but it's not going to change my game that day necessarily. It's probably pretty unlikely it's going to change that day. But if we set up in a method here, a sensible method, I'm struggling with the church that I'm at now to get them to stay, honor sound checks and know the difference between a sound check and a rehearsal. You see, if the band comes up and rehearses up there and the engineer's trying to scramble between that, it's not a whole, you can learn a lot more if I like to say, and most artists I've never had to say it, it's just kind of pretty much common. They get up there and get their monitors right and get their instruments tuned and get their sound going. And now it's Buford's time, and I call the songs. I tell them what songs to play. And if it was something to do with, some echo in the bridge, well, just play the bridge for me. Just play the bridge and let me make sure I got the timing on this echo. Okay, stop. Now y'all play this and play that. And with a group like Pink Floyd, they were like that 100%, believe it or not. I was expecting it. It's almost a funny story again. When we started rehearsing, day one that the band walked up on the stage, and they all came up on the stage. I could see them. Many had said hello to me first, and that was very nice. And then they all go up on stage, and they're just walking around and talking. And I'm sitting out there. I'm eager. I'm ready to go, but I'm just waiting. I'm politely waiting. They'll get up there and play sometime or another. And I think maybe 30 minutes went by or 20 minutes. I don't know. And the production manager come out to the console and he says, "What's up?" or "What are y'all doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just waiting for them to begin to play." And he said, "They're waiting on you." I said, "What? Pink Floyd is waiting on me?" Okay. So I just got on the topic. See, they had already gone through band rehearsals. They knew their songs when they got there. They had rehearsed 6 weeks doing nothing but that. Now it's 6 weeks of production work. But I'd never had that kind of luxury, to that extent. And so I'll just get on the talkback and I'll say, "Play, learn, and fly." And I mean, they just grab their instruments and start laying into it. And that's where I learned to do particular segments, when I needed it. And the sound checks were pretty much for me to dial it in to the room that they're playing to.
Yeah, and I think that's key for people to hear that. A sound check is for the sound engineer to check and make sure everything's working. Not necessarily a line check, which is making sure each line works. A sound check is still hearing the band, play. I will go into a lot of churches and they'll play song 1 and stop, and they'll play song 2 and stop, and they never do the transitions between the songs. And I say, hey, part of your sound check, you need to do the transitions between the songs so that the engineer can kind of see who's going to talk and what's coming. And then a rehearsal, like you said, that's for the band and the worship team. So the rehearsal needs to be different from the sound check. But a lot of times the difference between a line check, a sound check, and a rehearsal, I think gets confused, and you get 7.5 minutes to put together a sound check, a line check, and a rehearsal. before 8 o'clock in the morning before you got to go in and do your church service. So I think that's a really key statement that you made. Make sure you have a sound check for your tech.
Yes. It's a must. I can't, I've done it without them, but I certainly don't like that. And then you're scrambling like crazy on the first couple of songs. And, to pull it in the mix, you could have done it at sound check. And then also, if we had the luxury of doing 2, 3 songs, I've had up to 4 maybe, I will end with the song that they're going to begin the show with. So whatever it is, if it's Jackson Browne is going to start off with Running on Empty, that's the last song of the sound check. And then I've got everything for that song dialed in now, and they're all got guitars ready and everything. Now we go eat and come out and blast into that. So
I think a lot of people will say, well, but I have a digital console. I don't need to do that. And I disagree with that. I think what Buford said is key. Like, even when you're doing your sound check and you finish up, have them do the first song last so that you can get it all dialed in. You've recalled the preset that you may be using on the digital console. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good statement. Do the first song that you're going to sing, the first worship song, do that last in your sound check.
It'll give you a little bit better chances of it coming out of the chute very nicely. I've heard shows build up as the song. Sometimes it could take 2 or 3 tunes. I've been in festival situations where we had no sound check at all and barely a line check that you knew that the channels were working. And sometimes myself, I sit there and 2 or 3 songs, not being able, before I could kind of pull the foundation the way I was familiar with it and try to pull that out. So sound checks are just vital. And I think in communication at most houses of worship, they've got to understand that there's got to be, I see it too many times, this wall between the sound staff and the musicians. And, they'll say you got what you need or something like that. No, it needs to be, they just take control. The sound mixer takes control and tells whoever to play what. I might want to hear the bass player, hey, I had a little problem. I'm still working with some EQ. And would you mind playing the bass for me? Give me some finger and give me some thumb too. The thumb, the attack on it, I want to know where that's at. If I've exaggerated for what he's playing with his fingers, trying to get the note, then give me the thumb as well, whether he does a lot of thumb work or not. Just do it. And then that's showing me the extreme of the dynamics that he'd play it with, as well as tonality changes between those 2 different techniques. And all of them have it. Now, you can't get all these things every day, but try. I mean, we did pretty much with Floyd, but that's a different thing. There's no opening acts. There's, we had a luxurious setup, and but even still, where you have a major act and you have an opening act, and same thing kind of appears here again, that once that opening act is left, and hopefully they've brought their own console, which was only new, probably almost 2000, I'd say, before you'd see the opening act might be bringing in their own console. Otherwise, and in the analog days, it was a nightmare. We had to mark the console with ballpoint pens and here and there on tape, and let the opening act do their thing and then put all those back on the tape. I actually found, I know you total recall, and that's great too, but I've had total recall, not recall too. But you take your phone now and just do a video of it. That's what we did at Abbey Road, was mix the album there on a call rec console. It did not have, it had recall faders, but that was all. It only memorized the faders. So just a gazillion knobs, and we didn't have the phones in, so we were taking a little 8mm camera and just scanning the channels to archive them.
Yeah, to get it back set the way you wanted it. Now, I want to say something here, line check, sound check, rehearsal, when we were talking about that. If you're at church and you're like, man, I can never convince my worship team to give me that sound check time. One little hint that I've implemented that really helps is if you plan out your time. So let's say your service is at 9:30, you want to be done by 9 o'clock. Plan out your time. Say from 8 to 8:15, this is going to be my sound check time. From 8:15 to 8:30, this is going to be their rehearsal time, or however you plan it out. But if the sound check time is given to you as the engineer, then the worship team will look at you and say, what do you need? Because it's during your time. And so I've found that that's really helped. If you just show up and you expect to go through the rehearsal like you normally do, they're going to control that dynamic because they want to get done at a certain time and get the things done that they want. But if you lay out a time, of, hey, for this 15 or 20 minutes, this is what we're going to do. And if you have a sound check somewhere in there before you get to the service, and the sound check is stated as, hey, I need this time, I'll call out what I need, then the worship team or the worship leader will typically look at you and say, hey, Mr. Engineer, Mrs. Engineer, what do you need? And so use that to implement, hey, this is when we're going to do line check. This is when we're going to do our rehearsal. This is when we're going to do our sound check, and have all of that laid out. And that'll help you as an engineer at home. So Buford, man, we've talked about a ton of stuff today. We've gone a long time, and it's awesome because you've gotten a lot of insights out there. This is definitely going to be a part 1, part 2, maybe even a part 3.
Sure.
But I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us. It's been a pleasure to hear all of your insights and knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to share it, and especially to people that relate to it and want to better their own careers by sharing information. Don't ever hesitate to do that when you're around a group of people. And, well, how'd you do this and how'd you do that? Really, whether you agree with it or not, you'll find that there's it opens up your recipe book, what I call many times, and I'll tell them little things to try, little things we've talked about today. Just put that in your recipe, and then you might find one day that you can pull that out on what you're cooking on that given night. So don't think you've learned it all. I see that attitude too many times. And one last thing there is the attitude that many engineers, when they do have help underneath them, they will not give them enough responsibility. And it's like, I've heard some engineers say, when I was one of the first to start traveling with the artist on a steady basis, and I'd never want to leave my console, and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't let somebody else wear my console. Well, okay. Well, it's a shame to know that nobody else in the world can do it, but I guess so if you say that. But you work with that other individual. They're learning too. When you give them responsibility and you give them a challenge, and it's in audio and music, they'll jump on it and they'll get it. And, I've given 3 jobs, 3 tours, major names that I had to go because of scheduling with another artist or with something else. And that artist asked me, well, Buford, who do we get in your place? And I think all 3 occasions, and they wanted and required a pretty lengthy resume of who was going to take my place. But I said, my little assistant, he's been watching the show every night, been watching me move it every night. And then whenever we listen to show tapes, he said, man, I saw you put on the echo tonight. You didn't do that before, but that's really cool when you do that. All right, you're listening. And I've recommended my assistant on 3 different major venues, and they all 3 did a great job. So that's where you say, well, do I have to work for 2 to 3, 4 years in the shop before I'll ever see the road? That's not necessarily true. A lot of these things happen overnight. It does. It's not common, but it happens. Don't take yourself out of the field when sometimes you can just go out adding some more speakers to what the requirement is, and you're there on set, and who knows who you stumble into backstage and start talking to them, and wow, they like having you around, and come join us. It can happen as simple as that.
It can definitely happen as simple as that. And if you want to tap into Buford's knowledge and have him come to your church or your facility and hear more insights from him, You can email him at bufordjones@comcast.net. So that's bufordjones@comcast.net. Or you can always email us at information@digitalgreatcommission.org. That's information@digitalgreatcommission.org. Buford, again, thank you for coming on and sharing your insights on the Tech Arts Podcast.
You're very welcome. And I might add there too, it's one F in Buford. Some people put two F's, so it's just one F in Buford. But thank you, David, for thinking of me. I've always respected you and your work and been around you. We see each other at some conventions from time to time, and I'm more than happy to help you. I think I understand where you're coming from with all of this, and I respect and appreciate that. And I've seen quite a bit of it. So you can count on me, and if anything I can do for you in this way, and if enough people respond and want to do it again, I'll be happy to join you. Thank you for asking me.
Well, that wraps things up for today's episode. I can't wait to talk to you on the next Tech Arts Podcast. Until then, I'm David Leuschner, signing off by wishing you a great day and praying God blesses every moment of your week. See you soon.
You have been listening to the Tech Arts Podcast, presented by Digital Great Commission Ministries. DGCM is a 501c3 nonprofit that was started to help churches with all things technical. Whether you need help building a team, finding the right gear, or just a better understanding of the church tech world, DGCM is here for you. Find out more about our free on-site visits, reports, and consulting by going to audiovideolighting.com. Digital Great Commission Ministries will help you run your church service like a pro. Find out more at audiovideolighting.com.
From sold-out stadiums to intimate live performance venues, sound engineers agree on one thing for the best digital mixing consoles for live sound. The only name that matters is Digico. As the recognized worldwide standard for live audio mixing, Digico consoles are renowned for their industry-leading sound quality and ease of use. Whether your application is in a church, broadcast, theater, corporate, sports, or installed sound, Digico offers compact and affordable products. From the S21 all the way up to the pioneering power of the Quantum 852, Digico delivers the workflow, the feature set, and the absolute reliability that the world's biggest tours and programs have come to rely upon. If you're looking for a sound console, look to Digico for your answer. For more information on Digico, go to digico.biz. That's digico.biz. From front of house to center stage, for over 25 years, Earthworks microphones have sculpted the sounds of your favorite concerts, venues, and performances. Earthworks Audio is a sponsor of the Tech Arts Podcast. We are so happy to have them on board and excited to promote the new Earthworks SR117 vocal mic and capsules. To find out more about Earthworks Audio or to get your hands on this mic, go to earthworksaudio.com. That's earthworksaudio.com. Capturing emotion with sound. earthworksaudio.com. With Sermon Shot's church-specific AI, sermon highlights don't go unnoticed. Easily transform your sermons into 10-plus bite-sized clips, ready for social media. It doesn't stop there. Refine each clip by adding or removing video sections, give them your unique touch with colors, fonts, design edits, and create the goosebump moment with background music. Elevate your message and reach hearts locally and globally. Start today by going to sermonshots.com. Luminex Network Intelligence manufactures data distribution equipment for professional lighting, audio, and video applications. Luminex offers a complete range of network switches, converters, nodes, and DMX splitters, providing AV designers and technicians with cutting-edge technology to build complete data distribution systems for churches, big events, or large venues. Through products like the Luminode, Luminex keeps it simple and allows the user to easily control what they need to do or how they need to do it. Whatever your configuration is today, or whatever your configuration is in the future, Luminex is designed for today, but built for tomorrow. Luminex Network Intelligence, AV networking made easy. For more information, go to aclighting.com. That's aclighting.com.